3.
Okay, we're going to call this meeting of SEDA to order. And our first thing is a review of the Memorandum of Understanding. Mr. Galloway.
Yeah, well, I just put that on there as just kind of a reminder. We talked about it last night, the Memorandum of Understanding with the university and the chamber, SIF and the city. And again, it's kind of a formalized commitment to continue to communicate and coordinate with all those entities. We're all playing some role in economic development, and I think that we want to make certain that we continue close communication, that we support each other in the use of our resources. I think we can make better use of our resources the better we communicate and coordinate. So appreciated the council approving that, and the council probably at your meeting on your next regular meeting is on Thursday instead of Monday, because Monday's a holiday so that's the 24th. And we'll put an item on there for you to nominate 2 members to that. I will send the agreement that you approved last night with the mayor's signature. We'll make 4 copies of that, and I'll send it to the other 3 entities, and they can each sign the 4. When all 4 have signed, everybody will have a signed copy for the file. So I think it's a good step forward, and look forward to working with that group. Ready to go on to the next item?
Any questions or comments on that? Same conversation as last night?
As the city council's approved it, I don't think there's any reason for the trust to duplicate that effort. So, the only other item today, and today, the meeting on SEDA today, again, this is our first official SEDA meeting starting the year. Now that we have the Stillwater Economic Development Authority, and the council and the trustees approved the change from the former Stillwater Industrial Redevelopment Authority. I think we're more comprehensive in that. We've talked about that. So I'm excited to start 2013 with SEDA. I think it's a good move. We've asked to have the meetings once a month on Tuesdays at 11:30. And I'm not trying to complicate trustees' schedule, but I think that sometimes these meetings will take some time to discuss potential developments. And I think that sometimes the city council and the SUA meeting get extended, and by the time we get to 9:30 or 10 o'clock, it's probably not a good time to try to get real serious in negotiating detailed economic development projects. So I kind of wanted to keep them separate while everybody's fresh and deal with those. I just want to make a couple of comments so that the public, the press, trustees, as we go through the year, everybody knows that the city has established a community-wide economic development effort with what I call consumer retail. You know, it includes retail, but I think it can be broader than retail. Housing developments we may provide assistance on. Non-retail business developments we may provide assistance on, and retail as well. And we will continue to work and host all that development. First and foremost is to work with our local businesses, our local developers and local builders to try to provide whatever assistance we can to grow home-based development in all those areas. And we will provide and continue to provide assistance. But there's Stillwater has an increased interest from the outside business world as well. We see a lot of housing projects under development, the high-rise type of apartments that are from corporate development from all over the country. But Stillwater's on the radar, and I think we'll find the same thing with others as well. I'm going to ask Angela to give you a kind of an update on where we are. Angela has been very busy. Both of us have since we started this program. But what I was about to say, as we get into future meetings, so many of these projects in their early stages, the trustees will really need to have detailed information about the projects, about their pro forma, and about possible agreements, not necessarily financial aid, but agreements with the city in development agreements. And those involve in the early stages, a lot of proprietary information. And the law will allow us to go into executive session to protect that. And I expect that many of the SEDA meetings will have extensive executive sessions until we reach a point to where the companies, developers, or owners that we're dealing with are at a point where they can publicly disclose their information without jeopardizing their development. Business, private business gets very, very competitive. There's a lot of negotiations that go on. They took us into confidence to work with them, but releasing that information could jeopardize their development. So by the very nature of the beast, so to speak, it will necessitate that we have frequent executive sessions. Again, we'll try to keep the public as well informed as we can about the nature of the activity we're discussing, but we will have certain things we have to protect. So again, that's we want to be very open with this to the extent we can, but we have to protect interests of private investors as well. So just kind of a disclaimer up front for the future. Given that, I'd ask Angela McLaughlin to kind of give the council as much of an update. And again, this will sound a little generic at times, but Angela?
Angela McLaughlin, Economic Director for Consumer Business Development. And today I'm just going to give a brief overview of some of the things that we've been working on the past several months. It's very interesting to me because in this industry I was kind of warned beforehand that the holidays traditionally are a slow time, that many of your restaurant retail people will get through the holiday sales and then gear up for their expansions. We have been pleasantly surprised. Stillwater is gaining a lot of attention from both large and small developers, along also with restaurant and retail chains. Over the past several weeks, Mr. Galloway and I have had numerous meetings with both large and small developers. They really are looking at growth in the west corridor that we've all kind of been hoping for, and also out of the Lakeview Point area. I think that, again, we have been pleasantly surprised by their interest coming into Stillwater. And as Dan mentioned, this is kind of confidential information that we try to share as much without giving away the details. But the fact that they step into City Hall and want to visit with us on our own turf is kind of a win, I think, for both of us. Traditionally, they don't really like to do that, so they are seeking us out and they are coming here to meet directly with us. I've also been working with several interested retail and restaurant chains. They've asked for us to help them find available properties, property owners, any available places to lease. That puts us in an interesting position because as you drive around Stillwater, and I talked to Mr. Hopkins a little bit about this, there's not a lot available space right now, which is a good thing. That means that Stillwater's growing and thriving, but it also puts us in the predicament that when we talk to those people, not having available space at that time. Currently, I'm also working with, I'm sure you've heard now of Jimmy's Egg going in. They looked at Stillwater, I think, for several years. I know Paul has also worked with those guys. I'm sure that some of you know that that's a local investor that's behind that. So we're very pleased to be working with a local citizen also to be on that project. Also, Papa Murphy's, we've been working with them recently. They are purchasing franchise rights. Well, they have bought the franchise rights for Stillwater and also Ponca City. So they'll be opening in Stillwater and then moving on to Ponca City. Trying to find a good location for them right now. It's been a little bit difficult, but we are working directly with them. And also a local couple that's wanting to do a coffee drive-through place. So it's exciting to me that the word's getting out that it's not just for those national and regional chains, but also those local residents that are wanting to, maybe take a new venture in their life or expand their business. They're reaching out to us to help with that information. So working with those guys directly. We've also helped some of the local businesses. They're very interested in the demographics and what our Buxton report shows. So we've been able to share that information a little bit and explain to them about the growth and the needs that our community has. Again, I'm very excited when we've had the meetings with the developers. I think on their end, they have seen the interest of these national chains into Stillwater. Obviously, if they didn't know that they wanted to be here, they probably wouldn't be pursuing those developments like they are right now. So I know Chuck and I had talked about this earlier. Bricktown has a great article right now about the changing skyline. And I really feel like over the next year, our skyline or landscaping is really going to change with these developments that are currently happening. Do you have any specific questions for me?
Any questions on anything?
Not this time, sir.
I think it's, really appreciate that, and not to interrupt questions, but just add to that, that many of the developers, and we've talked with some developers who are making many, many visits to Stillwater in the last few months from the East Coast, some from the Texas, Dallas area, some from the southeast part of the United States, but they're all telling us the same thing, that there's been a significant interest in the Stillwater market for the last 3 or 4 years, and it was beginning to peak, that interest of the consumer business market, in 2008, 2009, and then the recession hit. And now all of the a lot of the development went flat. And what they're seeing in the last 3 or 4 months is a huge resurgence of interest. The retail and consumer market industry is starting to pick back up into growth mode, which they haven't been in for a few years. So that's driving a lot of this. But I think it's, as Angela was saying, we really are trying to get with as many of our existing local businesses as possible. With the information that we can share with them from Buxton, I think there's some tremendous opportunities for our local businesses to expand, maybe modify their market, maybe even open additional stores, and I think we can help make that very easy for them. So we're really hoping we can develop that. And I'm developing some tools where I can communicate with specific sectors of our existing economy. I would like to develop, communication with our restaurant owners that exist today, with our retailers in the clothing business, whether it's the shoe business, any aspect where we think we can offer some assistance, we're going to try to set that up. So we got our plate full, but there's a lot of good, exciting things for Stillwater.
I do want to say, too, Paula Dennison and the Development Services Group, they have been very instrumental in working with the developers. I think the developers right now are very impressed about our commitment to customer service and helping them make these things happen in Stillwater. So kudos to her staff. I think that is an intangible incentive that we are kind of offering to those guys, and I'm sure Mr. Galloway would tell you it is very well received, so we are very much appreciative to her and her staff.
I'd have to plug again our reorganization of things in the city last couple of years with our administrative team and with our ops group. It's made putting this program together so much easier. It was just like Paula Dennison has developed that working relationship with Angela, with other offices. And whether we're looking at the utilities issue, whether we're looking at the planning issue, whether it's the financial issues, we're able to bring all those resources to a developer when they come in at one time. And they're pretty astounded by it.
They're very impressed, yes.
This one-stop shopping is new. They don't really get that kind of attention. So it's really been exciting to be able to talk to these people and answer all their questions at one stop.
This is just not particularly for Angela, but I know we had a move to really do some annexing, and we're looking at moving west on 51, and then, we've talked about south some. Is there any place in particular that we need to be thinking about annexing in order to facilitate economic development?
Not to my knowledge. It's very interesting because most of the restaurants and retail chains, they really, they like to cluster. If Texas Roadhouse of Olive Garden are doing very, very well, they like to be in those locations. The west side has a lot of interest right now. It is almost astounding how many people are calling about property in that area. I think they see that opportunity. There's been an education process. When you go to larger communities, a 5 to 10 minute drive time to understand demographics and populations is very common. However, Oklahoma and our rural communities, a 15, 20, even 30-minute drive time is not out of the ordinary at all, especially for Stillwater. We draw in from a lot of those surrounding communities. So right now, I don't believe that our hard demographic number is really influencing them one way or the other. If we were 10,000 more, yeah, I'm sure they might be a little bit faster, but from the interest that we've seen, I'm not sure if it's going to influence them one way or the other.
I think, and it's a hard question to answer, but, and I'm not going to get, it's easy to get overly optimistic in this business, yeah. But, if things develop over the next year as we are getting expectations, what we're seeing, the interest, the market interest, I think it could create some annexation needs. I think in a year we'll see enough pressure on developing land, that there's going to be a desire to move to land that's outside the city. We may want to look at some annexation. Don't know where yet. It could be to the west. Surprisingly, we're beginning to hear quite a bit of interest in more growth for consumer type development to the north, moving out toward the interstate. And I think that's partly because of some market from the Tulsa area and to the north. Ponca City, the north side of Stillwater, is also drawing some attention. And we're beginning to get some more inquiries on the east and south side, well, all sides, but primary interest is out west and in the north area around Lakeview right now. I would say, as long as it's, if we're getting this word out, we certainly hope that anyone in Stillwater who has 5, 10, 15, 20 acres or more of land that's in the city that's zoned commercial, if you're interested in developing or marketing it or selling it, please get in touch with Angela or myself. We need to know, because we have commercial real estate people who are desperately seeking out 5, 10, 15, and 20 acre parcels because they have businesses who want to be established, but they're looking for those spots. And we don't know where all the spots are that are for sale or available. But, we will try to help our local landowners any way we can, but we need to know what you've got and what you're interested in.
You guys have any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, I think you hit on a very important point earlier, that I think our economic growth and how we go about it is a beautiful example of things we've talked about, how everything is so interrelated. Not just economic development. You can't put that into a vacuum and just think about it. That is impacted by development services. That's impacted by utilities. It's impacted by every facet of activity that the city does as a city. And so that's what I love about the reorganization and people working better together and having that team concept. That working together is what's going to drive it all forward, and this is a good example of that. So that it is much appreciated on the teamwork aspect of it.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, I would probably add, kind of on the tail end of it, for businesses that are currently in operation, we have the Buxton report, making that information available. But another impact that I see as being positive is if your favorite restaurants in town, mom and dad come eat at a restaurant, kids go to their favorite bookstore, they go to their favorite retail spot, whatever it may be. I think that it will have a rippling effect. It will affect everyone. And that was a question actually I got this morning when I got done with radio, was how will it affect my business? I'm not going to bring in some chain and replace my business. Well, I think the more people that are coming to Stillwater, and I think what Angela said really kind of drives that point home. A lot of folks travel from around Stillwater, and I think Dan had touched on that, about that, drawing that circle around the commercial district out there. Very impressive, and I think it will affect everybody. It's exciting times.
Positive impacts. Okay.
Hopefully we'll start bringing more specifics to you in the not too distant future.
Sounds good. Okay, there is nothing else on our agenda, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I would second.
Okay.
Thank you all.
We are adjourned.